This formula will turn $1 into $2 and 2 into 4 and 4 into 8 and beyond. And it's going to show you how to find and fix those bottlenecks as we move forward. So I'm going to show you the entire structure of how we do this in our business and how we do it for 8-figure businesses as well right now to create wildly profitable businesses where they're scaling from like 1 million a month to like 2.7 million a month and from 4 million to 20 million a year by using this process. So just diving into it, if you look at symptoms versus cause, right? So symptoms is like that's how the problem is showing up for you right now. So if we take a doctor analogy, you go to the doctors and you say, it really hurts when I press here on my stomach. Okay. So then they start going up the chain of causality. They start asking you more questions. So they go, okay, so let me try it. They press on your stomach. They say, does that hurt? Like, no, it doesn't hurt. Okay, great. What about if I press here? No, that doesn't hurt either. Okay. And then they keep going, right? And it's like, so when did this start hurting? Oh, it started hurting a week ago. Okay, what did you do immediately before it started hurting? Well, I was playing basketball. Oh, okay. Right. So you keep going up and up. And then what do you think caused that? Well, it started hurting after I finished playing basketball. Okay, well, at what particular point? Well, I stubbed my finger. Oh, okay. Well, do you think it might hurt? So what is the actual problem? So if you just diagnosed and straight away went, okay, they've got a stomach problem, that would have diagnosed the wrong thing. However, it turns out they had a broken finger instead, right? Because it hurts when they press on the stomach. So if we don't go up the chain of causality, we end up coming to the wrong assumption and we just end up focusing on the symptom instead. So how does that apply to business? So look at this here. We have inputs, throughputs, and outputs. Okay. So what we want to have is the maximum amount of inputs and the right inputs to create the maximum amount of throughput that then creates the maximum amount of outputs. So what happens here is quite often, I will just bring these in a little bit closer together. Quite often we spend a lot of time focusing on putting more inputs in, and trying to fix a symptom in that way. And typically, where we fix the symptom is going up the chain of causality in this part here in the throughput. So it's nothing really to do with the inputs. It's what happens because quite often you have something working, and then if it suddenly stops working, it's because there's a throughput problem. So that throughput problem might be an operations thing. It might be a fact that you've got a technical glitch in one of your funnels, right? It might be that your messaging has changed. It might be that there's some negative reviews that have gone online that you're not aware of, right? It might be that a new competitor has come into the marketplace that is bashing the other competitors and creating a new opportunity, right? So whatever the thing is there, but we have to go up the chain of causality to find exactly what it is. And that chain of causality is symptom. Okay, what's the cause of that? Great. What was the cause of that? What was the cause of that? And then what fix do we need to put in place based on the final cause, right? And it might be 5 layers, it might be 7 layers, it could be more. But until you look at the data and understand like what is causing the biggest change, and you can't find where the bottleneck is. So quite often it becomes the throughput is the issue. Now, here's an example of this in a business setting, right? So symptoms versus cause. So if we look at the symptom, well, the symptom maybe is your front end sales are slow. So whatever the first product you sell in your product line, whether it be a coaching product, whether an info product, whether it be a e-commerce product, it doesn't matter really what it is, but it's like front end sales are slow. Okay, what's causing that to occur? Well, we've got 10 funnels, and funnel number 1 was the one that we were driving the majority of the traffic to, that had the most number of sales. So now that funnel number 1 is underperforming the most. Okay, so it's a problem with funnel number 1. Let's look at the data in funnel number 1. Okay, are people getting, where are people getting stuck? Well, they're still opting in at the same rate that they were 2 weeks ago. Okay, so it's not a front end messaging problem. Is it costing more for the ads? No, it's costing the same amount. Okay, that's not the problem either then. So where is it getting stuck? Well, when they get to the checkout page, they're not buying. Well, they were buying 2 weeks ago. Why are they not buying today? Okay, so now what we want to go is go up a further chain of causality here, where we go, they're unable to check out. So we can see, like, you can watch a visitor recordings. Now, obviously, when you watch a visitor recordings, it will hide their details, but you can see that like actual process of them going through on the page, and then you'll see potentially what might come up in that situation is someone then trying to click to check out, and it's coming up with an error, right? But you weren't aware of this error because 2 weeks ago it was working fine and no one's changed anything. But suddenly, maybe there's been a software update or platform update that you weren't aware of. And then suddenly now it's not working because maybe you needed to link something up that you weren't aware of, right? So these people are unable to check out. They've got a tech issue. Okay. So then we go, okay, well, we know that's the issue now. Now, what do? Well, we fix the tech error and then we monitor. And we monitor that very, very closely over that first 7 days, especially to go, okay, are the sales rectifying? Are they coming back? We've had to do this like multiple times over the last few years, where we found, especially from a platform perspective, for example, like the platform software, whatever the thing is, like the landing page builder, just decides to change something. Like, for example, a little while back, Stripe created a new thing called Stripe Connect for one of the platforms that we were using. And when they created that, it actually changed how the checkout sequence went, right? And then we ended up with like all these weird, like failed payment things going on. And we were like, well, what's going on here? And it took like a deep dive over the course of 3-4 days to find what had gone on. And then once we found it, then we were able to fix that, right? And then the conversions came back. And we also started to find that then the page, because it changed some other things in the platform, then the page speed has started to get a lot slower. So we went, okay, well, let's go do a test over here because these have got these things called AMP pages, right? And AMP page is like a almost instant loading. And we're like, let's see if that improves conversion rate. And guess what? It did, right? So we have to go up the chain of causality to understand where is the problem. And then we can fix on here, we can fix the throughput issues, right? And then that's going to create more outputs, because a lot of the time the symptom is what people are looking at in terms of the output, but you can't change the symptom, you can only change the cause. The symptom is just how it shows up on the output. So if these sales are going down, then that's probably because you got a problem. Okay, so now if we look at like the second piece to this is understanding what is the most profitable path in the business. And then once you understand the most profitable path in the business, you can understand where the bottlenecks are for that and then follow that symptom or cause going through that process. So if we look on here, like, for example, on day one, you might be at 0.5 ROAS. So that means you spend $1 on ads and you get 50 cents back. Okay. So you're actually losing money on day one. And a lot of businesses won't do this and then they get scared after a day. And then they switch off the ads and go, oh my God, it's not working. Right. And then they never actually launch anything because they never get past day one. So day 7, maybe on day 7, we get to break even point. Maybe that is where the it's called a self-liquidated offer, right? So on day 7, if we hit break even, so we put $1 in ads, maybe we didn't get a customer on day 1, but like after the retargeting, after email sequences and abandoned carts, we're now at break even on day 7, or maybe it took 5 days of consumption before they go and buy an upsell, which then puts you at break even. And then by day 30, we're then profitable after ads. So now people are buying more stuff. Maybe a couple of those people are buying a higher tier product, right? Day 60, we're at 2.5. So it's okay. But once you take off your cost of fulfillment, once you take off the cost of the staff, any software, any tax, like all those things, like you're not left with loads at the end at 2.5x, right? But when you get to day 90, now that's where it gets interesting, because at day 90, then you're like, wow, we go up to 5x return. Now, if you knew every dollar you put in, you could get 5 back, how much would you spend? You'd spend as much as you could, right? However, the problem is most people never even get to that point because they don't look at it on this longer time horizon. So what happens is the sales go up, right? So you start spending the sale, you slowly start to incrementally put the ad spend up, and then you go and put the ad spend up dramatically because you're like, wow, it's working. Look, because all these people who came in 90 days ago started to buy. But then what happens is you take it from let's say you're spending 10,000 a month and you start spending 100,000 a month, right? A big difference in the amount. So you're spending 10 times as much. The problem is those people are not coming back to day number 90. So let's just kind of like walk through what that numbers look like when you're looking at the most profitable path and the sales velocity at every stage of the journey. So on day one now, let's say I spent 100 grand, right? I'm only making 50 grand back. I'm actually now 50 grand in the hole, right? I'm losing 50 grand on day one. Now by day 7, I'm at 1x, but once I've taken off my cost of fulfillment and everything else like that, I'm probably still in the negative. So I'm still like 20 grand down here, right? So when you've suddenly gone from spending 10 grand a month, so the worst that you could lose is 10 grand, to suddenly you're 20, 30, 40 grand down, then people start to panic and they go, oh my God, go back, don't do it again, right? And they all go revert back to where they were before. So by day 30, then you're at 2x, and then you start going, okay, well, maybe this could work out. But it's took a little bit of time for that sales cycle to come through. And what might happen is maybe as you go into a little bit wider audience, as you're spending faster, you might see that it takes 60 days for him to get to 2x, right? That sales cycle takes a little bit longer because you might have found that your most profitable path actually involves a longer sales cycle than a shorter one. So, for example, you might be able to get your cash back on day 7 using one product on the front, but then that's only worth 2x over the lifetime of the value of that customer. However, you might have another product where you have to go in the negative up to day 30, and maybe you don't get back to break even until day 30. But then by day 90 or day 180 that you're on 5, 6, 8x, right? Like then our job from a conversion rate optimization standpoint is to look to compress that sales cycle down and that cash conversion cycle, because then that allows us to go and spend more faster with a faster turnaround and with more confidence as well. So now let's apply that to like what a most profitable path looks like. Okay. So on day 1, that first touch happens with the buyer, right? The future buyer. So that could be an ad. It could be a JV partnership, right? Where there's been a list swap. It could be organic. Whatever that first touch piece is. Now, some people might buy on day 1, right? But what you want to figure out is what is the first piece in the customer journey that people need to see. Once you know what that is, then you can focus all your effort and attention to get people to consume that piece of information. So it could be you've got a book funnel. It could be you've got a free challenge. It could be a lead magnet, right? What is the thing that they consume first that, if they consume that, everything else becomes a lot clearer. And then we've got on day 7. So day 7, then maybe by day 7, they make that initial purchase, right? So then we talked about like kind of a low ticket offer, right? It could be something for like $7 or $47, even $99, something under $100, right? And that initial purchase there. So at that point, you're at break even. Now you want to identify what is the most profitable first product that they want to buy. And there's ways to do that. You can use a number of different analytical tools. You can look at internal data. You can look at external data. You can look at different tracking ways of doing that as well without getting too technical in there. Essentially, you can look at, was it the first click that made that initial purchase? Was it the fact that that was the last thing that they saw before they purchased? So then you start figuring out like where in the customer journey each one of these points go. Then on day 30, we look at the mid-touch, right? So, and this might be day 30, day 60, we look at the mid-touch and go, okay, what is the other pieces of content or the other pieces of purchases that they need to make before they go and buy a high-ticket item? So they might be the fact that they buy something for $7 and they go, wow, got great value from this. And then they might buy something for $100, right? Or $500. And then they got great value from that. It might take them another 60 days of consuming that product before they come and they're ready for your high ticket. The problem is most businesses are looking at like being profitable on day 1. So if you actually change the frame of how you look at spending on ads or just spending on marketing, right, to acquire a customer, and then retaining that customer and then ascending that customer. The difference is if you were going to put that money in stocks and shares, so let's say you put that money in stocks and shares today, you had $10,000 to put in stocks. Now, over the course of a year, let's say you get a 10% return on that. So at the end of the year, you put 10,000 in and you get 11,000 back. Okay? That's pretty mediocre, right? It's going to take a lot of cash put in there for you to be able to live off that amount. Now let's look at this from a business perspective. You put 10,000 in on day one, and let's just say we just put that 10,000 in, and then by day 365, that was worth 65,000. And I came to you and said, "Hey, I've got an investment opportunity for you. You put 10,000 in, and you'll make 65,000 in 365 days." Would you take me up on that? You probably would, right? The problem is when we look at it from ads, because we're spending that on a day by day rather than I've pre-invested this money, then we panic, we switch things off, we pivot too quickly, and then what happens is we never even get to day 90 because we never spent enough to get there. So you can do this in small stages, and it doesn't mean you spend your first 10K, wait 365 days, fingers crossed it comes back, and then you spend more. But if you can get above a break-even point, if you can get above that like 10% or even like, getting a 50% return on your investment. So if you think it's a difference between spending, because you're actually getting 650% return here, right? So 6.5x is 650% return. So instead of putting the money in stocks and shares, you give 10,000 in an investment and you get 1,000 back in return on top of your 10,000. So you made 11,000, right? Instead of making 1,000, you're making 65,000, right? 65,000. This is a massive, 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 massive difference. So you're making 65 times more. Okay. So if you look at it in a way of going, okay, well, where would I be happy? If I got all my money back on day 7, that puts us in a decent spot. But day 30, if I can know within 30 days that I'm at 2x, right, and that's covering my costs, I'm already like 1.5x after all costs, then that's going to put me in a good spot moving forward, right? Because I know I put $1 in and I get $1.50 back after all my cost, all my operating expenses and everything in 30 days. If I know that, I want to keep an eye on those numbers to make sure that they hold. But then what I want to be looking at is like what happens on day 60 or day 90. Because if then those people start coming through to day 90, that's going to help with that cash flow of reinvesting back into day 1. So then what we want to figure out as well is by the time we get to day 90, maybe that's where on average it takes someone 90 days to buy the high ticket item. So if it takes 90 days for them to buy that and you're selling that for 15, 20,000, whatever that thing is, and it depends, like what the lifetime customer value is of your customer. If you're selling more just low ticket products, it might be, hey, it takes 90 days for them to sell 3 products at that point. So for them to buy 3 different products, and that maybe gets your maximum lifetime customer value. For example, I used to sell bridesmaids dresses. What we would do, we would sell a sample. On day 1, we would not make any money. In fact, we would lose money. On day 7, we would still be losing money. By day 30, then what we would find is that sample's gone through. We've called every single person as well who ordered a sample. We've sent a personal video message to everyone who ordered a sample. We created a better experience than anyone else that was sending out samples. Once we did that, then what? Well, on day 30, they came back and then ordered like 6, 7, 8 bridesmaids dresses. So our cash that came in started off at like $2, right? And then they came back, and then within 30 days, they were spending like 400, right? So you have more cash to acquire a customer then. Why? Because of the follow-up process that was in there and because we knew our numbers going through. Okay. And then you've got, after 365 days, let's say you've got a recurring offer in there. This is where this starts to really come to fruition. Now, your high ticket item, that might be a 12-week program, it could be a year-long program, whatever the thing is. You have to consider and factor in your cost of fulfillment over the course of that period of time as well. Not just on, okay, well, it cost me this much to get a customer and I spent this much, so that's it. You need to consider the accrual basis of how much it's costing you to acquire that customer over the lifetime of the customer. And then looking at how you can keep that margin there up to that 365-day mark and beyond. By the way, you like it doesn't. You see a lot of software companies are going to the negative almost like for over a year, sometimes more than that, and they don't become profitable for 3-4 years. This is what caused the tech boom, right? Is because everyone was betting on future income rather than current income. So you can go further down the line, but most businesses, especially like if you're doing an online coaching business or whatever like that, you're not going to have the cash flow to support a 720-day cycle before you get to profitability. Okay. So what you want to look at all the way through here is like, how do you speed up the cash conversion cycle? And then what are the biggest bottlenecks that are stopping this, like moving this color, right? For example, this to here, right? If you were able to move that along, and speed up that cash conversion cycle and move your 5x to 60 days instead of 90 days, how would that affect your business? Well, you'd be able to scale a lot faster. You'd be able to spend quicker. You'd be able to grow the profitability faster. And it puts another 30-day turn, right, on the cycle of how quickly you can acquire customers. Because if you're onto something that's winning, you want to get the maximum amount of market exposure to that before all your competitors go and copy you. Because when you start making noise in the marketplace, people watch and then they go, that's a good idea. I'm going to go do that. So you want to get the biggest market share before they have the chance. And then you have all the list, right? You control the dice at that point. So you want to do it in a way that you can still fulfill on, but at the same time, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, money love speed is something what one of my mentors once taught me, right? So I'll just say that one again. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, money loves speed. So we want to go slow just to make sure we're getting proof of concept down and we know those numbers. And then smooth is fast and we can smooth that process out and know exactly what happens on that 30-day mark. And then by 90 days, then we're like, hey, we are crushing this. Great. Let's go fast. Let's go faster. Let's go fast. We can support the cash flow and then we can drive that forward. And then all you do is go through that symptom versus cause. And then what you find out is, well, what is the bottleneck getting them from day 1 to day 7? What is the bottleneck getting it day 90 down to day 60, right? And then go up the chain of causality and then you'll figure out where the biggest bottlenecks are. And now if then you end up with an issue that this 2.5x suddenly becomes 1.5x as you start to scale, then what you need to do is figure out, okay, well, which funnel is the problem? And then what is the cause of that funnel being the problem? And then reverse engineer that back until you find what the root cause is and what one particular metric is causing that to occur. Once you know what that is, then you can go and focus all your effort and attention on fixing that particular piece. So that is how the formula that will turn $1 into $2 and how to find and fix the bottlenecks and beyond. So if you want some more help and support with that kind of process and building the whole infrastructure that goes into place to make that happen, then feel free to reach out. There'll be like links below this video as well. Or you can just go to amplifycom.com, book in a call, and we can talk about how we can help you with this process as well if you want that support. So have a fantastic day and let me know in the comments if this has been valuable for you and what else you would like to see, because we are here to help and support you as much as possible on your growth journey so we can change the lives of millions of people.